you've been a fan of a proponent of moving toward decentralization, or at least to saying a decentralized entity is different from a centralized company because essentially there is no company. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between those for investors and how they might be able to differentiate the two?
The decentralization concept is a very important one in crypto, and I think it's an important one in getting us to rethink how the securities laws work. So typically, as regulators, we're used to dealing with centralized intermediaries, whether that's a broker-dealer that is working with a customer, or whether that's a company that is taking investor money and building something and then sharing the profits with investors. There's someone that you can go to and say to the company, why didn't you provide information to investors? You're responsible for providing information to investors so they can decide whether they want to invest with you. But when you talk about a decentralized network, there's no one central entity anymore. There's no one person or group of people that you can go to and say, why didn't you provide information to all of the rest of the people who invested? Because everyone's on equal terms. And that's part of the beauty of the decentralization framework, which is that everyone participates, everyone is equally apprised of what's going on, and everyone can equally share in the profits of the enterprise. And so you do have something new and different that's a little bit harder for us as regulators to fit into that framework, which was designed with this centralization model in place. You know, you have a company that's managed by a group of people, and those people might have more information than everyone else. So we as securities regulators try to address that problem. So I do think this decentralization concept is an important one, and one that we need to think about. How does that change the application of the securities laws, if at all?
And part of your thinking there is, in a decentralized environment, everyone has access theoretically to the same information. So you don't potentially have the centralized group that have more information and can make different investment decisions with better information than ordinary investors. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, and I mean, I think to put it more clearly than I did before, we often think about information asymmetries, where one group of people, the managers and the executives of a company, they have a lot of information about what's going on in that company. And so our disclosure laws are designed to make sure that they share the information with people who are thinking about investing or are invested in the company, so that you make sure that the people who are making investment decisions are able to do that with the information they need. And the concept of decentralization is that everything is much more open it's open and transparent, and there's no one person or one group of people that are running the enterprise, right? A network is a decentralized network where everyone is participating, everyone is essentially playing a part in running it, and also nobody has that information advantage over anyone else.
So perhaps a best practice for entrepreneurs and people starting their own blockchain or crypto projects is to try to be as open as possible. And perhaps a best practice for investors looking at these projects is to see if the information truly is open, or if there might be this sort of information asymmetry, in which case we would want to avoid them.
Well, there are different models for doing things. And so I think if you're building something and you want to build it as a company, you can do that. And then we have a set of rules that govern how you raise capital for doing something like that. I think that we need to think more carefully about what kind of rules make sense if there is a truly decentralized organization. Now, that said, we're in the process, I think, of figuring out how our securities laws and other laws, frankly, it's not just the securities laws that matter here, apply in the decentralized context. So I think people need to tread quite carefully and always be thinking about potential places where what they're doing might interact with the securities laws. But I think it's a moment for us as a society to talk about and think about, well, do the traditional securities laws make sense here, or should we be trying some other kind of approach that makes more sense in a world where there's much more transparency and there's much more equal and open access to a network, for example.